From the outset that I'm a proud member of the B team. And I want to thank all of my fellow B team members here today and all of our allies, the honorary members, who are here to support us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the last few days. Some people seem to think that the important issue here is which political party has scored the most points in this issue. It's not. Some people seem to think that an apology is all that's necessary here. It's not. Some people think that the fact this happened 16 years ago makes it all okay. It doesn't.
Shame!
Now, I believe that people are capable of change and growth. I believe that there are many people who held homophobic views in 1991 who don't hold those views today. And I actually have gone through that process. I know from personal experience that it's no small thing to challenge yourself that way. That's why I'd like to give Mr. Lekuski the benefit of the doubt. I'd like to believe that his views have changed since 1991. But my problem is that his actions since 1991 don't reflect the apologies he offered on April 3rd and April 4th. He's had many opportunities since being elected in 2004 to demonstrate that his views have changed, that he no longer believes there are two classes of people. Each time he's done the opposite. For example, on the 28th of June 2005, during the equal marriage debate, he told the House of Commons that, quote, "I firmly believe that by passing this legislation, we start on a very slippery slope, which could affect societal change in a very adverse way. I see things which have been expressed before, which could come down the pike, things like polygamy and others, while hiding behind the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I am fearful that societal change could happen," unquote. You're darn right societal change is going to happen, Mr. Lekuski.
Yeah.
That's less than 3 years ago, not 16. Do you want some other examples?
Yeah.
Well, we got it.
Yeah.
For example, just in December of last year, just 3 or 4 months ago, the rules were changed. And those rules now ban men who have had sex with another man in the last 5 years from becoming organ donors. And the folks at Canadian Blood Services continue to ban men who have had sex with other men, even once since 1977, from donating blood.
Shame!
When I consider policies like these, I can't help but be reminded of Mr. Lekuski's comments that gay men spread disease. His actions in the last 16 years, those are the context in which his comments on that tape must be viewed. And that context suggests that he hasn't changed at all. In fact, it sheds a disturbing and frightening new light on the reasons for some of the decisions he's made as a member of Parliament. It suggests that the decisions he's made weren't motivated by concern for public safety or a desire to defend people of faith, but rather by a belief that queer people are second-class citizens. It suggests that, not to put too fine a point on it, some people in our governments are out to get us. That's why Prime Minister Stephen Harper and the Premier of Saskatchewan need to demonstrate in concrete terms that the governments they lead do not subscribe to those views today. Apologies are all well and good, but in the end, talk is cheap. We need governments to back up those apologies with action. First, Tom Lekuski must give meaning to his apology of April 4th, when he said that he accepts responsibility for his behavior and will spend the rest of his life trying to make up for his actions. If he sincerely wants the queer community's forgiveness, he has to demonstrate his willingness to pay some sort of a personal price for the pain that words like that can cause. But more importantly, much more importantly actually, the Prime Minister and the Premier need to demonstrate with action that the governments they lead today don't condone those views. Ultimately, the issue here is not about real suffering that views like that continue to cause in the lives of queer Canadians. Because the truth is that for all that the queer community has advanced in recent years, we still have a long way to go. For example, many queer youth continue to be afraid of being bullied in school. Gays and lesbians experience substance abuse problems, suicide rates, and mental health challenges at rates 3 times those in the general population. Queer teens continue to be at greater risk of being homeless or being victims of sexual abuse. And queer people are many more times likely to be the victims of assault. In fact, the life expectancy of queer people remains well below the national average. Sorry, it's not like we have a podium or anything here. And I function better when I can read, so. Okay. Try this again. And here I am on television, and I can't turn a page. Okay, sorry about that. Those challenges are real, but Canadians have been given an opportunity here to turn the page on our painful past, and we need to seize it. So today, the B team is calling on the Saskatchewan government to end homophobic bullying in our schools. We call on the Canadian government to reverse the ban on sexually active gay men from being organ donors. We call on Canadian Blood Services to lift a blanket ban on sexually active gay men from donating blood, and focus instead on the risky behaviors of individuals regardless of their sexual orientation.
Hear, hear.
We call on all Canadian governments to provide funding for anti-homophobia organizations and for healthcare services for people who have suffered emotional trauma resulting from homophobia or transphobia. We call on MPs from all parties to endorse Bill C-326, a bill which is currently before Parliament, which would add gender identity and expression to the Canadian Human Rights Act. And we call on all members of Parliament to endorse the Montreal Declaration, an international treaty of human rights for queer people, which would, among other things, outlaw the death penalty for queer people worldwide. Now, those of us in the B team appreciate that the last few days have been difficult and painful for Mr. Lekiewski and his family. We have no doubt of that. But we ask our fellow citizens to consider that these have been difficult days for many queer Canadians as well. For many of us, old wounds have been reopened, and our worst fears about our governments have been reconfirmed. We ask all of you in the public to consider that while you may not be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, or two-spirited, you may still be members of someone's idea of a B team.
Yeah.
And that is why today we are asking for your support. We are asking for your support to ensure that Mr. Lekiewski gives meaning to his words, that he is willing to accept responsibility for his actions and the hurt that they cause. And we are asking for your support for some concrete actions by government that will help us to end homophobia and intolerance once and for all in Canada. Thank you.